So Job chapter 38 verse 1, and by the way, this is can we go to the next slide? This is God's response to everything. So all these guys have done all this talking, and now God is actually going to say, you know what? Be quiet. I got this. So there's three things we're going to talk about tonight. Number one is going to be God's response to Job. Number two is going to be Job's reaction to God, and then God's response to Job's counselors. Okay, so that's going to be the way it's going to go. So God's response, and it's basically this. Look at Job 38:1. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind, and he said, "Who is this that darkens counsels by words without knowledge? Dress for action like a man." That word is actually gird up your loins. Okay? How do I express that really well? In biblical days, you wore a dress. Guys wore a dress. Well, they wore a robe or whatever it was called, right? The tunic. Yeah. That reminds me of that. What's that? Yeah. The museum tunic. That idea. It's not a dress. It's a tunic. It's at the height of fashion in my day. Right. So what you would do is, if you were wearing a long tunic, you would gird your loins. You would have a belt on, and you would pull your skirt up, or tunic up, through your belt, and like hang it over, right? So what would happen is your tunic would go from being ankle length to being above your knee. Right? No, but the reason you would do that is because you had to run in battle. So you'd be running around in battle. Can you imagine a guy being like, "I shall kill him"? Oh! Because he stepped on his dress, right? So that's not a great way to die. So they would gird their loins. So here's basically what he's saying. He's saying, you know what? Put your big boy pants on. I'm about to talk to you. That's essentially what God... Can you imagine God speaking to you out of a tornado and saying, "Put your big boy pants on because I'm tired of you"? That's what's going on right here. I'm telling you right now, I'd be shaking too hard to put my big boy pants on, right?
You need a second pair of big boy pants.
He says, "Dress like a man. I will question you, and you let me know whether I'm right or wrong." And then look at chapter 40 and verse 1. Chapter 40 and verse 1. And the Lord said to Job, "Shall a fault finder contend with the Almighty? He who argues with God, let him answer it." Now look at verse 6. And the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind. And he said, "Dress for action like a man. Put on your big boy pants. I will question you, and you make it known to me. Will you even put me in the wrong? Will you condemn me, that you will be in the right? Have you an arm like God? Can you thunder with a voice like his?" And I can just imagine as the tornado is swirling and God's voice is coming out, him saying, "Can you thunder?" And right at that moment, you know what happens? Thunder hits, because he's God and he can do that, right? A little dramatic entry there. So all that boom, this booming voice, this boom behind him. "Can you thunder like me?" Here's the nutshell. I'll give you three things in a second. But God's response to Job is basically this. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? You think you know. You can just mute. You hit the mute button. You think you know what's going on, Job? You really don't know what's going on. And then he spends basically 3 chapters talking through some things with Job. He's reprimanding him. So number one, here's what he says. Number one, you don't have my knowledge. You can't explain creation. You don't have my knowledge. You can't explain creation. And in the middle of that, he starts talking about mountain goats, wild donkeys, wild ostriches, wild horses, hawks, eagles. He's like, "Do you make these animals do these things?" I do. As a matter of fact, this is what's interesting to me. We still can't explain creation. I'll give you an example. Can you guys see the board over there?
Kind of.
All right, let's put the picture up. All right, that's a picture of a heart. That's a picture of a heart. I can't get a look at it. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Am I being loud? The heart has basically two muscles. It's got these muscles that are kind of like one, and it's got this like W-looking muscle that is another one. I just found this out today. See, science is wonderful. Then it's got this sinoatrial node right here. It's a little yellow thing. I guess it's yellow. I think it's color-coded, right? It's got this little yellow thing, and here's what happens. The heart, I don't know if you know this, but your heart beats on its own. Like you can't think, okay, beat. Okay, stop. Right? It's still going. It's still happening. No matter what you do, your heart is beating. There's people that have learned how to slow their heartbeats down. There's people that speed their heartbeats up. Drama queens particularly. And so that's what's going on. So this little node, this sinoatrial node, they figured out it sends electrical currents through the heart. And it kind of goes in waves like that. And what happens is right here, there's a conductor that catches it. So it sends a wave out, and this part goes blah blah. Then, a half second later, this part goes blah blah. Right? So that's what's going. It's like blah 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 blah. And it actually goes, it doesn't do it all at one time and go or anything like that, right? It's like, you take it, no, you take it, no, you take it, no, you take it. And it's going back and forth and back and forth. Here's the thing, though. This is what blows me away. We don't know. Check. We don't know. We don't know where the electricity comes from. Like we know. Okay, it comes from the sino blah 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 mode, right? But how does it get there, and how does it release its own energy? You know what the doctors say? Here's what the doctors say. We don't know why the heart stops wanting to beat. When somebody dies, when somebody passes away, let's say they're just really old, like my grandma. My grandma was like 190. No, she was 93 or something like that, right? And she was old. And one day she was just like, I don't want to live anymore. I want to die now. Because being 93 is really hard. So she just went like this. She was like, okay. And she died. Her heart just stopped. There was no heart attack. There was nothing like that. Nothing. Her heart was like, I'm done. I don't want to send out electrical notes. We don't know why. We can't explain that. And that's exactly what God is saying. Thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, remember, this was written sometime during the time of Genesis. He's saying, you don't understand my creation. And thousands of years later, with all the awesome things that we have in medicine and all that kind of stuff, and guess what we're still saying? We can't figure out all about creation. We don't know why things do what they do. So that's number one. Number two, this is what else he says to Job. You don't have my power, and you don't have my glory. You can't manage creation. You don't have my power, and you don't have my glory. You can't manage creation. Look what he says, chapter 40, verse 10. Chapter 40, verse 10. Adorn yourself with majesty and dignity. Clothe yourself with glory and splendor. Pour out the overflowings of your anger, and look on everyone who is proud and abase him. Look on everyone who is proud and bring him low, and tread down the wicked where they stand. Hide them in the dust together. Bind their faces to the world below. Then I will acknowledge you, that your own right hand can save you. Here's what he's saying. Be me. You think you know so much, Job? You think you have an answer for why? Here's the truth. You don't know. You don't have my glory. You don't have my power. You can't do the things that I do. Let me explain a little bit what that looks like, okay? So take your Bibles and go all the way back to the book of Exodus, okay? Bible goes like this. It goes Genesis, Exodus. I like this one better. Orange? I like this one better. Wow. Hi there. that was really loud in my chest. Exodus chapter 33. All right, Genesis, Exodus, Exodus chapter 33. We're going to start in verse 10. Ready? Exodus chapter 33 and verse 10. And I love this passage. It's so cool. I'm going to be reading out of God's Word version because I just like the way it reads. It says, when all the people saw the column of smoke standing at the entrance to the tent, they would all bow down their faces, touching the ground at the entrance to their own tents. Now, you remember when they were wandering through the wilderness, and they had a pillar of cloud by day, and it was fire by night? You guys remember that? And at night, it would rest itself right in front of the tabernacle. And so everybody would just bow down to it. It was awesome. Then the Lord would speak to Moses personally, which is ridiculously cool, as a man speaks to his friend. Then Moses would come back to the camp, but his assistant Joshua, the son of Nun, stayed inside the tent. And Moses said to the Lord, "You've been telling me to lead these people, but you haven't let me know whom you're sending with me. You've also said, I know your name and I'm pleased with you. If you're really pleased with me, show me your ways so that I can know you, so that you can continue to be pleased with me. Remember, this nation is your people." You see how Moses is being like a little bit he's being a friend with God. He's like, dude, really? Like, talk to me here. Let me know what's going on. Let me know what's going on. Then Moses said this. Then the Lord answered, verse 14, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you peace." And Moses said to him, "If your presence is not going with us, don't make us leave this place. How will anyone ever know you're pleased with your people unless you go with us? Then we will be different from all the other people on the face of the earth." And the Lord answered Moses, "I will do what you have asked because I am pleased with you, and I know you by name." And Moses said, "Please, let me see your glory." Do you realize what he's asking here? He's saying, God, I want to see you as no man in history ever has or ever will see you again. He's saying, I want to see you the way you are in heaven. That's an awesome, awesome question. Verse 19. And the Lord said, I'll let all of my goodness pass in front of you, and there I will call out the name of the Lord. And I will be kind to anyone I want to. I will be merciful to anyone I want to. But you can't see my face, because no one can see me and live. Guys, can I just tell you, that's glory. You talk about like, oh, you know, Lionel Messi, he's the best soccer player in the world, he scores a goal, and he's like, yeah! But people don't die when that happens. LeBron James dunks a basketball, he's awesome! But he doesn't look at the crowd and everybody goes, and dies, right? American Idols don't kill people. I think there was one that got arrested, wasn't it? Anyway, like, anything that we look up to in this world, any of these things that we say, oh, I wish I could be like them, I wish I could know more about them, I wish I could have more of them. Guys, they don't even compare to God's glory. God's glory literally would cause us to die. Verse 21, then the Lord said, look, there's a place near me. Stand in this rocky cliff. And when my glory passes by, I will put you, oh, that made it really big. I will put you in a crevice in the cliff and cover you with my hand until I pass by. Then I will take my hand away and you will see my back, but my face must not be seen. Just imagine, just get this picture. God is walking by Moses and he's like, don't look, don't look, don't look, don't look. Okay, go ahead. And Moses comes down from the mountain, and I am not joking, he is glowing. Like literally glowing. That's, just grasp this, guys. The God that you don't want to spend 6 to 8 minutes reading 2 chapters of the Bible about every day, that's that God. The God that your sport takes precedent over, so that you do whatever it is that you do every day, 5 days a week, with all this time and effort and energy and thought, and it makes you miss your quiet time, makes you miss your prayer time. That's that God. That God that maybe you're diving into your computer, or you're diving into the internet, or you're diving into your gaming, or your online shopping, or whatever it is that you're doing. And all of those things that you love so much and that I love so much, and that keep us from connecting with the God of the universe. And God is like, dude, the back of my head would make you glow because of my glory, and you're worried about like Uggs. and you're worried about soccer, you're worried about getting the best grades in the entire school, and you're worried about shopping, you're worried about NCIS Los Angeles. God says, you don't have my glory, you don't have my power. Listen, this is an amazing part. Turn all the way to the end of the Bible now, Revelation. Because part of God's power is actually his wrath. Right? And he mentions that in that little discussion in Job. Keep turning to Revelation chapter 6. He says, pour out the overflowings of your anger. Do that. Let me see what it looks like when you get mad. And I can just see what it's like when most people get mad. Like, this is the overflowings of people's anger. Like, that's all I got. Really tough guys punch things, and then they're like, ow, that hurt so bad. Right? And girls, they do this. Like, that's the overflowing of a girl anger. Or what's worse is they're like a cat fight, pulling hair, which is, I have a lot of girls in my house, so I keep my hair short. I want you to just get a feel for a little bit of what it is. Listen, a little bit of what it is when the God of the universe pours his wrath out. Revelation 6:12. I watched as the Lamb opened up the sixth seal. This is number 6 out of 7. There have already been 5 that have happened, including, I believe, destroying a quarter of the Earth's population. A powerful earthquake struck, and the sun turned black as sackcloth made of hair, and the moon turned as red as blood, and the stars fell from the sky to the earth like figs dropping from a fig tree when it's shaken by a strong wind. Just imagine meteors coming down to the earth. The sky vanished like a scroll being rolled up. Every mountain and island was moved. Just imagine that, standing on an island, and all of a sudden it's a mile away. Standing on a mountain, and all of a sudden it's a half mile over there, and you were on it. Verse 15. And the kings of the earth, the important people, the generals, the rich, the powerful, and all the slaves and free people, hid themselves in caves among the rocks and the mountains. And they said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of the one who sits on the throne and from the anger of the Lamb. Because the frightening day of his anger has come, and who is able to endure it? Then jump over to chapter 8, verse 12. That's seal number 6. Just seal number 6. Chapter 8, verse 1. When he opened the 7th seal, this is so bad, listen. When he opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. 6th seal wasn't bad enough. 7th seal, it is so bad that the angels, that God himself, all of creation hushes. And then he pours out 7 bowls on the earth. You know, my wrath doesn't seem quite so bad. Punching a locker, guys, doesn't seem quite so cool anymore. He's saying, hey, Job, you don't have my power. You don't have my glory. You can't manage my creation. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are to complain to me about what's going on in your life? I am the God of the universe. Last one. Last thing he says to Job. You don't have my authority. You can't rule my creation. Now I love this section here. So let me. He gives us 2 animals. Let me just go there because if I read too much, he gives us 2 animals here in Job that you probably you've heard of before, but you're not super familiar with. Anybody know what those 2 animals are? Anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
Behemoth and Leviathan.
Behemoth and Leviathan. Good. I got brothers here on either side, right? Behemoth and Leviathan. And the deal is that he says, you know what? Mankind can't even stand before these animals and I create them, they're just like my imagination. And that just blows me away. One commentator said this. Previously the focus was more on the mystery of the animal creation. Now the theme is the terror and the splendor of God's creatures. So he moves from like, wow, look what the ostrich does. Look what the wild donkey does. Look at what the eagle does. And now he's like, dude, have you noticed the behemoth? Have you noticed the Leviathan? About behemoth, God describes to Job, who lived after the flood. This is from Answers in Genesis, by the way. A great beast with which Job was familiar. The great animal called behemoth is described as the chief of the ways of God. Perhaps the biggest land animal God created. Impressively, he moved his tail like a cedar tree. Although some Bible commentaries say this must have been an elephant or a hippopotamus, the description actually fits that of a dinosaur like the Brachiosaurus. Elephants and hippos certainly do not have tails like cedar trees. This is another reason people date this all the way back into Genesis, okay? Because of these animals. Now the word Leviathan actually means to ride, and so we have some pictures of what people think the Leviathan may be. We know the Leviathan is a sea animal. Can you guys see a little bit over there? Okay, so here's our pictures. Number one. They think it could have been that. Now you say, whoa, what is that? Well, Jonah got eaten by something? Good idea to me. That's an artist rendering. This is not an actual picture. Okay? So it could have been that, whatever that is. That could be Leviathan. Number two, that's a description. It could have been this. You're saying, dude, that's like a crocosaurus. I saw a sci-fi movie about that. It was a B movie. It was like a lot of fake CGI blood. That one, it could be this. Same thing. Eating a shark. An enormous animal eating a shark. Right? Same kind of animal with fins. Let's go. You're saying, Pastor Jack, that's not a real animal. Tell that to these bones. That was a real animal. Okay? An artist rendering of it, but it was a real animal. An enormous crocodile that only swims in the ocean. Right? This is the stuff of sci-fi movies, and God's like, yeah, I made that. And I didn't use CGI. Last thing, it very well could have been one of these jobs. Right? It could have been just a simple crocodile that was like 30 feet long or something. So either way, no matter what, God is saying, hey guys, my power, my glory, my creation, listen, you can't line up to it. You can't line up to it. So then Job answers. Let's go to the next slide. Job's reaction. And here's what he says. He says this. Number one, let's put it up. I'm finite. Look with me at Job 40, verse 3. Job chapter 40, verse 3. All the way back to Job. If you're at the Psalms, you're pretty close, right? Job 43 says this. Then Job answered the Lord and he said, behold, I'm of small account. What shall I answer you? I lay my hand to the mouth. I've spoken once and I will not answer. Twice, but will proceed no further. He's saying, God, I am little. I am finite. Say, Pastor Jack, you've used that word a couple times, finite. What's it mean? Well, I was introduced to it when I started taking senior math. Because I could take advanced calculus or finite mathematics. And I asked my what are those people called? Guidance counselor. Thank you. I asked my guidance counselor, I'm like, what's the difference? And they're like, well, if you got straight A's in algebra, and pre-calc, then you should take advanced calculus. But finite mathematics, well, finite means little. And I was like, that's the math for me. Right, so let me explain this to you a little bit. I'll show it to you. So here we go. That's what infinite mathematics would look like. That's what difficult mathematics look like, right? Let me give you another one. All right, This is the Birch and Swinnerton Dreyer conjecture. It's a numerical investigation of elliptical curves which asserts that the size of a group of irrational Albion points is related to the behavior of an associated zeta function near the point s equals 1. Now, I'll show you the math I took. You were laughing! Somebody give me the answer. Oh, you know that? 13 times 13.
Pour out that anger.
I only memorized the 12s. You're right. It is 169, right? So do you see the difference? Do you see the difference between something that is massive and huge and something that's finite? Let's go to the next one. And then, this is really the great question of our age. Yeah. Which direction does the toilet paper go over? I'm going to answer. It is B. It's got to go over the top. And if you're a putter of the toilet paper on backwards, shame on you. Shame on you.
Just speaking as a janitor, it's definitely
What's
A.
that?
Speaking as a janitor, it's definitely A.
Oh, Justin disagrees with me. Just because you were a janitor does not mean you have the right to disagree with me. All right. So the first thing that Job says is this. He says, God, you are enormous and I am very small. Okay, you got that. Number 2, this is the next thing he says. He says, God, I was just ignorant. Do you guys hate when you don't know something's going to happen and then it happens? Do you guys hate that? I hate being surprised. I don't know if you guys are like that. I hate it. Like I hate this kind of stuff. I hate this.
Okay.
Turn it up. I hate this.
They ordered a new printer. Hey, thank you.
She's so sharp. I've been planning that for a day. Like, that's a long time, a day. I'll tell you right now, if you ever do that to me, wear a face mask. Because I will punch you. But I won't do it on purpose. Jamin, about 3 years ago? Jamin was hiding behind the steps in my house, and I came around the corner, he's like, "Blah!" And I was like, "Oh, that's my son, I can't do that." I mean, I was within inches of that boy's face. And he just went like this, he's like, "Blah!" I hate not being in the know. I hate being surprised by stuff. I hate being ignorant of things that I should know. And that's precisely what Job is saying here. Listen to what he says, chapter 42, verse 1. Job answered the Lord and he said, I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. Who is it that hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore I've uttered what I didn't understand, things too wonderful for me, which I didn't know. Hear, and I will speak. I will question you, and you make it known to me. I heard you by the hearing of the ear. Now by the eyes I see you. Therefore I despise myself. And I repent in dust and ashes. Understand this, guys. Job is really serious about this. He's saying, hey, God, I was angry and I accused you because of my suffering. And I was wrong. I was just being okay. The last thing, God responds to Job's counselors. And I love this. I love this. Look at chapter 42, verse 7. And the Lord had spoken these words to Job. The Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, my anger burns against you. Remember, what is he in right now? What is God in right now? He's in a tornado. How you feeling? How you feeling if the tornado's like, I'm really upset with you? And if it were a Sharknado, it would be worse, yes. It's a God-nado, right? So that's even way worse. All right, and the Lord had spoken these words to Job, and the Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, my anger burns against you and against your two friends, because you have not spoken to me what is right, as my servant Job has. Now therefore, take 7 bulls and 7 rams, and go to my servant Job and offer up a burnt offering for yourselves. And my servant Job will pray for you, and I will accept his prayer, not to deal with you according to your stupidity, folly. For you have not spoken what is right of me, as my servant Job has. So Eliphaz the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamanite went and did all the Lord had told them, and the Lord accepted. Listen, what does he accept? Job's prayer. I love it. I love it. So this is what happens. God says this: you were wrong, have Job pray for you. You were wrong, have Job pray for you. Now, over the course of the years, there have been people that have been wrong about important things. For example, Thomas J. Watson once said this: I think there's a world market for about 5 computers. Okay, think about it. Thomas J. Watson said, I think there's a world market for about 5 computers. He was chairman of the board of IBM. It's true. A recording company expert in 1962 said, we don't think the Beatles will do anything in their market. Guitar groups are on their way out. A little bit wrong there. The guy who invented the cathode ray tube, which is Lee DeForest, he said, theoretically, television may be feasible, but I consider it an impossibility. A development which we would waste little time dreaming about. A development which we should waste little time dreaming about. He's the guy who invented the tube that started television. There used to be tubes in televisions. That's what made the picture. But he said that. And then there was a bishop about a century ago who pronounced from his pulpit and in the periodical that he edited that heavier than air flight was both impossible and contrary to the will of God. I think it's ironic that Bishop Wright had 2 sons, Orville and Wilbur, the Wright brothers. You guys who invented flight. Everybody's like, okay. Listen, we can be wrong about stuff, and we can be arrogant about how wrong we are. But guys, can I just challenge you? When you're speaking about God, hear me on this. When you're speaking about God, can you do that with humility? Unless God himself said it, do that with humility. These guys were getting it wrong. They were messing up all over the place. I love that God says, have Job pray for you. Because I think 2 things happen with that. Number one, and I don't want to go into great detail on this, but I think that when he said, have Job pray for you, it helped his friends with humility. One commentator said this: they were to have Job pray for them as their mediator. His earlier prayer for his family, he did the same. Never once had they prayed for Job. But now Job, whom they had condemned and badgered, and who had rejected their counsel, was called by God to intercede for them. What an amazing irony. I love that. I love that God says, hey, I got something that's good for you. It's going to humble you. God wants us humble. Number 2, I love this. Job had to forgive them in order to pray for them. You can imagine how Job was standing there kind of like this. Like he's kind of standing back, and he had to kind of communicate forgiveness. And what D.A. Carson, who's a theologian, he says this: those who had felt so superior to Job are the ones who stood in need of forgiveness themselves. And Job is not only vindicated before them, but he becomes their champion. I love that. I love that for 37 chapters these guys wail at Job, and in the last chapter Job turns around and prays for them. I love that. So what's your take home? I want you to get this, guys. I want you to get this about the book of Job, if you get nothing else about the book of Job. You may think that you understand God, or that you may think that you have the right to question God. But every interaction and every bit of knowledge you think you have should absolutely be held in humility. You may think you understand God or have the right to question Him, but every interaction and every bit of knowledge you think you have should be held in humility. Remember, this is the God